Welcome to today's Explainer. We're about to embark on a truly fascinating journey, literally tracking the flow of energy through our world. We're going to zoom all the way out from the massive scale of a sunbeam, right down to the micro level of the soil beneath our feet, just to see exactly how life sustains itself. But hey, before we get into the heavy scientific models, let's test a little assumption. True or false? All living things get their energy by eating other living things. Go ahead and lock in your answer and just keep it in the back of your mind. We'll reveal the biological reality very soon.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the source of all energy. Second, producers and consumers. Third, mapping the food chain. Fourth, the complex food web. And finally, the 10% rule.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the source of all energy.
For the vast majority of life on Earth, the main source of energy is, of course, the sun. But to really grasp how that solar power fuels life, we have to understand a fundamental rule of the universe, the law of conservation of energy. It states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. However, its form can totally change. In ecosystems, energy flows in just one direction. It usually starts with the sun, enters living organisms, and moves from one to another. But remember that change of form part I just mentioned? As energy moves, a lot of it actually changes into thermal energy and just escapes into the environment. We'll see exactly how much later on.
Moving on to Section 2, producers and consumers.
Here we've got a really clear split in the biological world, producers versus consumers. Producers are the living things that make their own energy-rich food. Most do this by capturing sunlight through photosynthesis, but some incredible producers use a process called chemosynthesis, using chemical energy and matter to make their food. On the flip side, we have consumers. Unlike producers, they literally cannot make their own food. They have to get their energy by consuming or eating other organisms. And boom, that actually resolves our true or false question from the beginning. The statement was, all living things get their energy by eating other living things. The answer is false. Producers make their own.
Now, those consumers we just talked about, they aren't all cut from the same cloth. They fall into 4 distinct groups based on what they eat. First, we have herbivores, which eat only producers, so think of a deer grazing on plants. Second are carnivores, like lions or wolves, which eat other animals. Third, we have omnivores, which eat both producers and other consumers, like a bird that snacks on both berries and insects. And finally, we have a very special fourth group, detritivores, like bacteria and mushrooms.
I really want to highlight this fourth group for a second, because detritivores are quite literally nature's ultimate recyclers. They get their energy by feeding on the remains of dead organisms, which is exactly why they're often called decomposers. Their role is absolutely crucial. By breaking down dead matter, they produce carbon dioxide for the air and return vital nutrients right back into the soil. Without them, dead organisms would simply pile up in the environment. They really keep the whole system running smoothly. Okay, Section 3, mapping the food chain. Let's take a look at a food chain. It's a beautifully simple model showing the linear movement of energy. Now pay really close attention to the arrows here. They don't just point to what gets eaten, they show the exact direction of the energy transfer. From the sun, to the plant, to the mouse, to the snake, and finally all the way up to the hawk. It's a fantastic, simple way to study one specific path in an ecosystem.
Next up, Section 4, the complex food web.
While a linear chain is great for the basics, it doesn't exactly show the whole picture, right? I mean, most living things don't just eat one single kind of food. So this is a food web, many overlapping chains within a community. Notice how certain organisms sit right at the crossroads. Look at the diatoms at the bottom. Their energy flows to both copepods and krill. And those krill? Well, their energy arrows branch off to both fish and squid. It's this incredible web of survival where multiple paths overlap to sustain the whole community.
And finally, Section 5, the 10% rule.
So to figure out how much energy actually makes it all the way through, scientists use an energy pyramid. Food chains and webs show us how energy moves, sure, but they don't show us how the amount of available energy actually changes. The steps of the pyramid are called trophic levels. Producers, like plants, make up the bottom step, trophic level 1, holding 100% of the originally available energy. Consumers that eat those producers sit on the next level, and consumers that eat other consumers are on the highest level. But notice the severe drop-off in available energy as you move up to those higher-level consumers. The absolutely crucial and honestly kind of shocking point here is this: 10%. Only about 10% of the energy available at one trophic level successfully transfers on to the next. Just 10%. Which naturally begs the obvious question,
Where on Earth does the other 90% go? The answer is that organisms essentially have to pay a massive energy tax just to stay alive. It's the cost of doing biological business, basically. Remember the law of conservation of energy we talked about at the start? Energy isn't destroyed, but it does change form. An organism uses up to 90% of the energy it gets simply running its own life processes, moving, growing, breathing. That energy changes into thermal energy and escapes as heat, meaning it simply cannot be passed on to whatever ends up eating it next.
Which brings us to a final, really thought-provoking question to leave you with today. We've mapped out this one-way flow of energy, and we've seen the drastic tax taken at every single step. If only a tiny fraction, sometimes just 1% of the original energy, actually reaches the top predators, what happens to those apex predators when the base of the pyramid shifts or shrinks even slightly? The balance of these ecosystems is incredibly delicate, completely reliant on that initial sunbeam and the unbreakable rules of energy transfer. I highly encourage you to look at the world outside your window today and see if you can trace the invisible energy web all around you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I will catch you next time.